All right, what's up, guys? So the podcast is back. This is our first time with the new setup. We're enjoying it. There's probably going to be some hiccups. You may not like it. I don't know. Stick with us. Hopefully you enjoy it, and we'll get through it. We've got a good topic tonight, and we look forward to talking with y'all. So let's get right into it. So I guess, first of all, we'll go ahead and talk on the normal stuff, and that's if you want to follow Southern Release, check us out at Instagram at Southern_Release_TV. And then if you want to check us out on Facebook, it's just Southern Release. And then we are also on YouTube. And so that's where you can find our content for the time being. We're looking forward to expanding out, getting in some different stuff. But for right now, that's where we're at. So tonight I have Jeff Annis here, and we're going to go over some stuff about recovering a deer using a dog. And he has been doing this for a little while. And so we figured we'd bring him in, talk to him, get his 2 cents, get his opinion on stuff. And hopefully y'all can take something away from it and learn a little something, maybe help you out in the woods as we continue, because deer season is upon us here in North Carolina. The bow season is a couple weeks in. It's 2 weeks in. So, and then, before too long, it'll be gun and stuff like that. And so it's that time of year. I mean, I'd be...
It's a good time to talk about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's right at the very beginning. And I mean, just the other day I made one. It wasn't the best shot. I've hunted long enough to where I knew I needed to back out. I did not want to back out. I did not want to go home. I'm just going to say that right now. I was up all night, slept like complete crap, but I knew that I needed to. So, not everybody has that. And so that's something that, while you're here, kind of, maybe talk about the do's and the don'ts, things that you should do, things you shouldn't do. And at the end of the day, this is all with the anticipation of helping you, hoping that we help you recover the deer that you shot, and whether it be a deer of a lifetime or deer of the moment, whatever makes you happy. This is really just to help you be successful on your hunt at the end of the day. So with that, I'm going to let Jeff take it over for a little bit, and we'll let him tell you who he is, who he represents, where he's from, and all that good stuff.
Like you said, my name is Jeff Annis. My tracking page is Loaded Ground Deer Recovery. I'm here actually as a member of the NC Blood Trailing Network, and that's what we're here really to talk about, is how we've come together in NC to try and help more hunters, and use a kind of a central location that hunters can go to when they've run out of options for tracking. Just knowing that they have a dog as a resource in their area. The legalization of tracking deer with wounded dogs is fairly recent, although it's been going on for years. Started out with Deer Search in New York and into UnitedBloodTrackers.org, where they started legalizing it all across the United States. And so that's another resource you have there. But we tried to bring a more localized approach to it. And there's just a lot of misunderstandings about it is why I'm really here.
Right. I got you. I got to say, one of the things you were talking about, it's kind of just getting started, I guess it's been going on for a long time, but for around this area, especially in North Carolina, we had never really, it wasn't a big thing. And I think the thing that kind of got it started in this area for me, at least, I'm sure other people are like, man, I've been running a daggone dog to track deer for years, and they may have, and maybe I'm just late to the game, but one of the first people that brought it to the forefront for me was Kirk Vaughn, and I think it was when he found one of, I think it was Kevin Morris's wife's deer, and you saw that picture go everywhere, this big velvet deer, and Kurt and a dog sitting there, and the whole nine, and then, he kind of brought it to North Carolina.
Absolutely. We actually, every year there's a track fest sponsored by the United Blood Trackers, and Kirk brought that and hosted it here in North Carolina. It's like a 2-3 day event where trackers from all over the country go to
That's cool.
learn more about tracking. So definitely put his imprint on tracking in North Carolina, brought it more down to the southern states, kind of region.
Yeah.
And just following his recoveries, those recoveries make an impact, and set the stage kind of for what we're doing today. And I've met Kirk, and awesome. I mean, he knows more. He's forgotten more than I'll ever know about tracking. And experience is huge.
Right.
When you're out there tracking someone else's deer. I've had him track one of my deer that within 10 minutes he knew it was still alive, and
that comes from experience.
Ended up shooting it the next year, but
yeah,
he really inspired me to actually get into it.
Okay, all right, that's cool.
But there's just very differing opinions on the subject. A lot of it's the older school method is, and I agree, I respect, you do all you can to find the animal.
Right, and I believe that for the most part that is, everybody at some point, because I don't think that there's really anybody out there that shoots a deer and immediately is like, oh, I got to call a dog. Mm-hmm. And there may be some. I mean, I could be incorrect. There may be some that immediately feel like I made a bad shot. I need to call a dog or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think for the most part, people they get to looking. Some people may not have the resources to have the friends that have the knowledge and the experience to track and know what to look for. But that in itself causes people to get out there. I mean, we talked about it earlier. One of the first things they do is that they get in there, and it's like anybody that's especially new to hunting or whatever, they go way too early. They jump the gun, they jump in the woods, they immediately want to go try to find deer and put hands on.
That's one of the biggest mistakes.
Yeah, they go first thing. They're like, oh, I got to go right now. It's been 20 minutes. It's been 30 minutes, and it's like, easy, man. If he's dead now, he'll be dead in another 30 or 40. Most of the time, if they're going to die that quick, chances are you're going to see them fall. So if they're not, just back out, go grab something to eat, call a buddy, grab a beer, do whatever you got to do, and give it some time and get back in there. So,
yeah, and by organizing a group, what happened is a lot of trackers were doing this stuff independently, which is fine. But in order to help more people, we actually say someone calls me and I can't do the track, I know some reputable people that can, and I will get them in touch with them.
Right. And so I got to say, one of the things that you did for one of the groups that I'm in was you kind of posted a map on there. I appreciated that because it gives you an area of where you are, who's locally, and gives you a couple options. This guy might be busy or might not can do it, but now you've got a couple of different numbers. So is that the group you're talking about? Or?
Yes. Yeah. We started out with a list, which it can be kind of cumbersome to read through, and they're saying what county they're in and surrounding counties. I mean, unless you have a county map in front of you, some of these people are hunting areas, they don't know the counties around their area. So the map was a way to make it easier, just simplify it for hunters. And you click on the area you're hunting, and the trackers that can range will show up.
Right, that makes sense. I like that, and I like the map itself. And actually, when I first saw it, I didn't know it was a map. And then I clicked into it, a week later, and I was like, "Wow, this is really cool." Not only
know it was a map; it said Tracker's map right on.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. Like when I saw it, I just saw, I thought it was more like an ad for like what you do. I didn't know it was a group, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so when I finally saw the map, then I went on there, and then I noticed not only is this a map, but this is also got contact information, names. I mean, this is literally a good guide to go to and find multiple sources. For your area. Some areas it seems like there's more people than in other areas, but nevertheless, it gives you a great starting point. I mean, and so what I'll say is from that map, and in this group, these are a group of, everybody's got that guy that's like, I got a dog that can find a deer. So I mean, what is that group? What is your group? What does this group bring to the table? What's the difference?
So by organizing the group, and United Blood Tracker set some UBT1, UBT2, UBT3. These are tracking tests that get more difficult. A way to judge your abilities, your tracking team's abilities. So in order to regulate and actually have an idea of what, and just to be able to tell these tracking teams are putting in the effort to learn and practice. Those are ways we can tell if they're putting in the effort. And so we've, in the last few years, brought a reputable group of guys. Most are certified, but in the interest of growing, we pulled in quite a few trackers, evaluate what we have, and encouraged by next season that they all have these tests. And the biggest thing about growth was using each other. When people are calling, they're getting someone to help. When you call and you get a lot of no's, people start calling for dogs less. And I mean, the more we're out there tracking, the more they're seeing what the difference is in these dogs, and the way people that are focused as a team, how much it's better,
Well, and that was something else you kind of spoke on prior, was that, I think in the back of their mind, I think everybody thinks, well, I'm just going to call this guy that's got this magical dog, and he's going to come find the deer, right? Mm-hmm. And immediately, not knowing a lot about it, I think, well, there's a dog and he is trained to follow the smell of a deer and and so on and so forth. And that's well and fine. There's definitely the dog definitely brings a lot to the table that clearly we don't, right?
Yeah.
But it takes a team, right? It takes knowing, what signs to keep them on that path, to keep them from veering off. I mean, that deer I shot last week, there was 5 there. When I shot, they all scattered. So it's, you know what I mean? You got to start in the right direction and then kind of keep them on that. And in some areas, there's a lot of deer, and they're all going in different directions.
We tend to have a very high deer density in North Carolina, and a lot of them start where a bunch of deer were eating.
Right, exactly,
so,
yeah.
When you go on a track, you putting in the work before the track in the off season is what recovers that deer that day. When you're on a track that day, you're letting your dog do what he knows, and what he knows you want him to do. Your expectations that you've created through practice and training. Where people get confused is they see blood tracking dogs and they assume you need blood to use these dogs.
Right.
And so what the dogs are actually doing is what any coyote in the wild or wolf they're picking out the deer they want to find, because each deer smells different to a deer, and each deer smells different to a dog. And so wounded deer have scents coming off them as they are in fear. Their nervous system is starting to kick in for survival.
Right.
That through training, you've let your dog know that this is the deer I want.
Okay.
You track this deer, you get reward.
Okay.
You do not get reward for chasing healthy deer. So, and we do that through marking tracks and using scents like interdigital scent, which is in between the hooves of the deer. And when you're training, you'll weed out some of the blood, because no one's calling me with a good blood trail.
Well, and I can already say that's probably that's one thing that you see a lot. If you've got a good blood trail, that's we go and get the deer. When you don't have that's when you call a dog. You're like, oh, I did a bad shot, or I can't find any blood. Sometimes people just can't find the blood. I mean, they just can't find anything. I found the arrow of the deer that I shot the night before, and then left it and was like, okay, I'm gonna come back tomorrow. So I left it right where it was, and me and a buddy, Michael Moore, it took us 45 minutes to find the arrow I had previously found the night before. Now, granted, the night before it had a luminoc on the end of it, and it was pitch black when I went looking for it. So you were
still looking for the luminoc.
Yeah. But nevertheless, though. But yeah, no, nobody ever calls. They never call and are like, hey, can you bring a dog? I've got really good blood. You know what I'm saying? They're like, and you get out there. Some people don't even some people don't know where to start. The first thing I tell them is, go get in your tree You know what I'm saying? I don't know how y'all do, but if I'm helping a friend, I'm like, go get in your tree, and I'm going to pretend I'm the deer. You try to pick it out. Where was the deer? Where was, let's start from the very beginning. I think a lot of people get ahead. They're like, I saw him over here last, and they try to walk to where they visually think they saw him, and that's where they get off. And I'm always like, no. Let's go back to the stand. I don't know how it is with dogs.
Nowadays, you could take your cell phone and take a picture of where you saw the deer ran to have it as a reference, when you go look, for the hit site and the exit path. But there's some do's and don'ts with tracking, and that's what I wanted to kind of get into was we train the interdigital because we use hooves from deer that have ran and died. They're putting out a lot of scent through the interdigital.
Okay, hold on. What is interdigital?
Interdigital is the gland in between the hooves. And deer use these scents every day. If a doe's walking through doe path during the rut, he smells one that smells good to him. He takes that trail.
Okay.
Right. So deer do it, and dogs can tell the difference between different deer. They just need to be shown what deer you want. And through rewarding them when they track the right one in practice, they know when they get there what to do. Naturally, their instincts can do this. It's just about creating those expectations for the dog. So when you go to that field you were talking about with 8 deer running different directions, and you're going there to help somebody, you can actually trust that the dog will pick the right one.
Okay.
That would be, if you didn't have the practice, then you might be doing 8 tracks.
Okay, you might be heading right.
8 different directions.
So you mentioned the do's and don'ts. So so say, I'm kind of blessed in the sense that I'm filming. So whenever I make a shot on a deer, I get to watch the replay and then either feel really awesome about it or feel really horrible about it. So like the deer that I shot, I was like, dude, I smoked him. He's going down. I watched the replay and was like, that was not a good. I mean, I did smoke him, but it was not a good shot. It wasn't a fatal shot. Yeah, it was. It wasn't the shot that I wanted. So, a lot of people don't realize. They don't have the ability to look back. They don't have that. All they've got is a mental replay. So what is something that what should they be doing? What should they be going for once they shoot a deer?
I'd say a good starting point is wait an hour before you even go to where the deer was hit.
Okay, I agree with that.
You can always take note of how the deer ran away. I mean, tail down. Did it bolt out of there real fast?
Did you get a mule kick? Yeah, the whole nine.
Did it just pretend like nothing happened? Was it hunched up? And let it go. Wait an hour. If you feel like the deer may have bedded so close, every situation is different, right?
Absolutely.
This is tracking deer. This is not cut and dry. So sometimes they feel even checking out the hit site might spook the deer if you think he bedded in a thicket right there.
Yes.
So obviously you take different precautions there, but what you find at the hit site determines how long to wait, and the fatality, how lethal the hit is.
So if I'm hearing correctly and comprehending, what I'm hearing is rule number 1, right? Is right, and I don't think this is about like tracking deer. This is just good hunting practice. You shoot a deer with a bow, you don't see it, or a gun or whatever, you don't see it go down initially. Just get out of the tree and walk away. Literally, just get out of the tree and walk away. There's nothing wrong with. And you had mentioned taking pictures. There's nothing wrong with maybe taking a picture with your phone of the area where you saw the deer last. Right, that way you've got something to reference when you get down there. But the first thing is, let's just get down and let's leave. Let's get out of the area. Let's give it some time, and then after. You're saying an hour. I'm cool with an hour. Depending, I may go longer, but at a minimum an hour, you go back and the first thing you do is look for the hit site. You don't go anywhere else. I think a lot of people get messed up. They immediately like, I saw a deer over here. I'm gonna skip this 30 yards.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that can be found out right where the deer was shot.
Absolutely. Whether that's blood types, hair, color of the hair, whether it's hair that was cut on impact or if it's exit hair, white versus gray hair, or these are, and you're thinking about the angle of the shot you took. the angle the deer was standing, and then, if you have an arrow, you're smelling it, and you're seeing, is this got a gut punchy smell to it?
Right. Does it have that slick grease like it was a bad hit? Does it have? Are you looking for bubbles? Are you looking for bright red blood, darker blood? Everything tells a tale, right?
Yeah, and so what you do from that point can determine whether you're going to find that deer. And it's just, when a deer's shot, it really, unless it's looking at you when you shoot it and it's really on high alert, they don't really know what happened. And I'd rather go track a deer that didn't know what happened, jogged off, died in its first bed, than jump it. Now it knows something's chasing them. And that's a different kind of run.
Right.
It makes a different kind of run. It's in survival mode. The body's telling it to shunt the blood away from these bleeding areas and to contain these vital organs for survival. So jumping a deer makes things very difficult.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. That's the reason why, and the first deer, the deer back over in this direction, when I shot him high. He ended up living, but I pushed that deer so hard. I was very eager to go get it. It just come from being excited and inexperienced, and very eager to go get it. And the deer lived, but nevertheless, I jumped right back in there. I was within an hour, and I had video. I knew it was a bad shot, but I had video. I knew it was a bad shot, and I jumped right back in there in an hour, and I never messed with him. Now, I don't think that not messing with him would have resulted in finding the deer, because he would have lived regardless. But I pushed him, and I noticed when we come back the next day, I really saw how far I pushed him, because he had laid down at one point and left blood, and then I pushed him, and not only did I push him, but I pushed him a good little ways. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So that was a learning experience for me. That it's kind of like one of those things where, hence the reason I backed down on this last one. I didn't want to push it 2 counties over. I mean, you get into a lot of this stuff in North Carolina. I don't know about other states, but in North Carolina, technically, to cross lines to go get deer, you have to ask for permission.
Yep.
So if you get into that, you're going to be knocking on different doors and all this stuff, and it's like you're better off to just let the deer lay down and expire and come back later on than it is to push it and have to talk to all your neighbors and then all this, you know what I mean? And then that also gives, in my opinion, it's not a good look for us, right?
Yeah.
So
nowadays, there's even more things that, that you got to think about. I mean, there's coyotes. I mean, we hunt in the early season where maybe the meat can spoil. So it's a decision you have to make based on what you find, but know that in the dark you may find a living deer that you have to dispatch.
Right.
Not as easy as in the daytime.
Correct.
And so like I said, nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is the same every time. The deer teach us something new every time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every single year, I got in my mind, I learned something last year. Like I've got them down. I figured them out, right? Right. Mm-hmm. No, I learned something new every single year, and I've been doing this for a while, and yet I'm still a student. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still a student to it. So we've talked about steps 1, steps 2. Mm-hmm. You actually, on your card, you got a list of things. Before I get into this list of things, the one thing that I don't see on here that I'm going to ask, so this is tips for tracking success, but what's my indication, my number one indication that says I need to call this number? You know what I mean? I need to call somebody. I need to check this map out. What is the leading thing that you would say is like, once you start to see this or see that, just stop and ask for some help?
Yeah. Well, the easiest way to put it is, at some point, you're going to be depending more on luck and doing more harm than good when you know you have a resource as a dog, like a dog as a resource. So when you start, last blood stopped, and you start, you definitely don't call your buddies and go 6 different ways.
Right.
If you have a dog to help.
Right.
You might do some little circles, right? But as your confidence starts to decrease, and you have that dog as a resource, maybe just call the tracker, maybe, early, and tell them what you got, and maybe they can advise you on what to do, But once you learn, and maybe you watch a dog and that tracker comes out and teaches you a little bit, you start to learn, this is not a good sign, because contaminating the blood trail is going to decrease your chances of finding the deer.
Right.
There are specks of blood. There's fluids coming out of that deer. You shoot them in the gut plugs up the hole. There's fluids coming out of that deer. There's gut contents, but there's also that interdigital, the hair rubbing on grass, that the dog can use. Specks of blood you can't see.
Right.
That the dog can smell. And so fatally hit deer that die quickly are some of them are just nearly impossible to sight track.
Right.
And so there's always this deer shot. How many deer recovered? How many deer could have been?
Right.
Not all deer you don't find live. And many may get infections later on, but when you're talking about guts and intestinal, they're usually going to get an infection that's bad enough to kill them within 12 to 24 hours, when a dog could have been used, right? And even longer than that sometimes, they take to die. Depending on conditions, you could still get a dog at that point. So there's always there's a need for them. There's just a lack of understanding of them. And sometimes a negative, outlook on them, like, hey, he wants a dog, so he's taking the easy way out, or he's not looking hard enough. And sometimes that's just farther from the truth. There's just some deer that die that are just really hard to track.
Now, and again, I'm not in your industry, but I don't see, and I call it industry. I'm not in your passion, right? I don't track, but I haven't seen a lot of people who look at it as in that's an easy way out. I think a dog is a great resource, but I don't know, I don't know what is my cutoff. Like, is it like, okay, I've tracked 50 yards, I've tracked 100 yards. What is the point where you're like, okay, let's quit messing this up? Because at the end of the day, if you feel like you should call somebody with a dog, you want to give the dog the best chance, right? So
absolutely.
What do you? I mean, you're
not going to grid search. Just there's so many scents that the deer's putting off. Most of these dogs are tracking. We're getting calls after 12 hours. So the dogs have to track colder scents than what has actually walked across it that night. So those does, all those deer in there walking across that trail that night, the dog needs to differentiate. Oh, that's exciting, but I'm on the track of a wounded deer. So, and then when you add people walking through it, not only just scent getting on their pants they don't know about,
turning leaves.
Yeah, these are all stuff dogs have to work out, and they're gonna have to. And
that kind of comes back to where the team is, right? And that kind of comes back to where you after doing it for a while, you start to see things that can help out, or maybe you even there's some with the dog's gonna do one thing, but you can kind of read the hunter too, right? Is this guy? He says, "Oh, I ain't been in there that much," but then you see boot prints.
Stories change, but I mean, we're out there to help. So I mean,
right. At the end of the day, you're like anybody else. You want to see people be successful.
Yeah, and there are tracks I go on where I'm 99% sure the deer's alive, but what is the benefit of going out there is educating them on this,
right?
Proving your dog, but also educating on next time we'll take these steps, right? So on the card I have, mentally mark where the deer is before the shot, mentally mark the deer's exit path, mark hit site, and mark the blood trail until you lose it if you jump the deer back out. it just becomes really tough to track the deer after you jump it. And do not contaminate blood trail. Do not grid search. The reason we mark the trail well is because the handler is going to get there with his dog, and if it's 40 yards where you tracked and you know for sure it went 40 yards right through there, if you mark it, he can tell his dog, yes, good, that's the one, that's the one, that's the deer.
Right.
And that's informing the dog, building a story about that deer. This is the deer I want, and you're reassuring it as a handler. If you can't do that, some maybe younger, less experienced dogs are going to have trouble.
Well, and it's kind of like you were saying too. You know, once you get on, because there is that one smell to that deer. Once you go from, say, you find something here and then you find something there, then you show encouragement. Yes, this is the deer we're after, which gets them more hyped up, gets them wanting to look harder for this deer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And seeing those signs, that's a good way to keep them
and
focused.
It doesn't take much to mark 40 yards, but it could help you find the deer.
Right,
you know?
right.
So that's just another plus if, you're hearing this now, or you read the card, that can really help your chances. It's really what it's about.
I got you.
So,
well, that's good. So what else we got?
We were talking about, this all really, it's actually gaining. And I don't know if it's so much that people are becoming, awareness is greater now. More people are hunting, or I hope it's awareness and hunting. More people are hunting. And so you also get more trackers, wanting to help, which is great. And so that's why we organized it, because we just want to do what's best for the hunters. None of us do this for money. This is like donations only.
Right.
But we're also hunters. We also have full-time jobs. I think it's like hunting. I mean,
that's the thing.
Isn't that the funnest part, is finding them?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, for a kid, or
absolutely.
It's like hunting, it's very low lows and very high highs, and that's how it is with tracking. When you track it for a kid and he's crying, and it just kind of like, but then there's those times when you find it, and so that's why we do it. We're all in it for that,
Absolutely. No, I agree. I mean, and to see, at the end of the day, like I said before, you want to see people be successful. You want to see people have those moments and have those smiles and share that stuff with other people. And it's great for the community. It's all around a good thing. I'm a big fan of it. So with the group that you got, what's the group's name again?
It's NC Blood Trailing Network on Facebook.
NC Blood Trail Network on Facebook. So
it was actually started years ago by Craig Beecham, and we're kind of just with the increased popularity, and I call it popularity, but it's really just more awareness, and people are using the service. Maybe, North Carolina, just people are more trophy, management mindset. Maybe they got deer they've been watching for 3 years, and they're like, and they heard about
maybe
a dog one day.
Maybe that's increased or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. Well, they heard about a dog one day, and they're like, let's try it. I really want to find this thing.
Well, I think for the most part, my personal opinion is people have always hunted the same way, whether it be for, I don't think a lot of people have increased in trophy. I think the problem is they got to a point where they were like, screw it's alive, or screw it, I'm never going to find it. And then, you hear about all these stories where we're like, well, we were rabbit hunting, and then we found
the 160.
the deadhead, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you find the deer later, or, we were shed hunting when we decided we wanted to walk the entire property. And that's another thing too. To me, I hear a lot of people are like, well, do you think the dog's going to mess up there? And it's like, personally, let's be honest, you could either, like you said, walk grids, walk circles all over the place, or you could minimize your footprint in the woods with the dog, and that would actually help your area better.
Yeah, and in North Carolina, part of one of the stipulations they put on it was when they legalized it, tracking with dogs has to be done on a leash, and most of us use a 30-foot leash.
Wait, hold on. When they legalized it,
Yeah.
this was illegal.
This was not technically in the regulations book. I don't think that you could track wounded deer with a dog, and it was United Blood Trackers that pushed it. And then when they made it legal, they put the stipulations on it. You know,
so it won't necessarily illegal. It just they didn't have anything on it.
That's my understanding.
I got you.
And so it's
That's
okay.
different.
I mean, people didn't want dogs running all night looking for dying deer,
Right.
and so they controlled it in a way, right?
I got you.
In the South more, they don't use leashes so much in the South, which helps with recovery rates. But like you were saying about tracking and learning each time you go out, people that are using these dogs to extend tracks that they would otherwise think were impossible to sight track, they're going places the deer that they never would have known deer went. You know, they're going to, and so those tracks where you missed them information, you're gaining more information, right?
Oh yeah.
And so the trackers dispel lots of myths. You know, deer won't run uphill when it's shot, or, you know,
but
they always go to water and all that.
This one right here, right after I shot him. Now this is the year that he lived, but as soon as I shot him, this joker went through a basketball size hole, straight up a hill over 2 oak trees. It was about as laying down. That was about as big as off the ground as much as this table right here. Right across top of him, got blood over top of it. You know what I'm saying? So he's going across this stuff. He didn't even bat an eye. Now, granted, he did live, but nevertheless, he was injured. And at the time, the last thing he was thinking about, and who knows? I don't know what they would think about, but, you know, I don't think that they're thinking, I've got to go. I know with gunshots and with certain wounds, they think it's hot, right? You always heard, if you hear anybody ever been shot or anything like that, it's hot. So that I can see the water thing, and I have found a lot of deer near water, and that's where they go. But I don't know. I think when a deer's hurt, it's going to do, you know, I've tried to think about, well, will it run in a circle this way? Will it run in a circle that way? Injured limbs, injured parts, whatever. But again, I learn something new every year. So,
yeah,
you know.
A lot of the things that people believe that deer do when they're wounded is why they don't find it. You know, it wouldn't go up that hill. So
they make assumptions, right?
And so we don't even look in blood that direction.
Right.
And, you know, it goes to water. So we'll skip this and we'll go look in water. Water has usually, I mean, a lot of it's survival in water. I mean, I think that's just my understanding. First, it's sepsis. It's an infection, right? The deer gets very febrile, wants to cool off. Naturally, will go to water. But they also go to water with double lung shots. So you think maybe it's a survival instinct. When I'm injured, I run to water. Just like when a predator is chasing them, sometimes they'll jump in water and try to swim. So water, yes, it plays a role, but it's not obviously concrete. You know, not going uphill. I mean, it's times a year. Change that. You know, bucks travel. If a buck's wounded, he's going to the safe place. He's going to that core area. That could be a mile or 2 away. If you gut shoot them, they run a mile.
Well,
to their favorite place.
For the most part, you know, what I've seen is during early season, deer that are shot during early season, they usually take the same path out as they took in, because they're used to all summer. They're on a path, right? They do food, water, sleep. Food, water, sleep. They don't do a lot of roaming.
They're not far from their area,
right?
Their bed.
So, you know, the same path in is usually the path that they'll take out. Now, when you get into those October, November months, it becomes like they're so far away from home or away from their core area. It's not so much as it could be like the path that they're facing. Yeah. They could have come in from this way and faced this way and then leave that way. And it's not so much as a pattern as it is just reaction, right? And then I think when it gets colder, again, I think it changes again. So that's why I say there's no rhyme or reason to what it is, to where they're going to go, what they're going to do.
Yeah, and that just makes it kind of a mystery during the rut. It's just that much more complicated. But that's why I say nothing's ever set in stone. I mean, but with the tracking, by extending these trails, what trackers in the history, like specific, John Jenner wrote a book after spending time in Germany with tracking dogs, where they use tracking dogs almost on everything they shoot in areas, and often require you have that resource before you get your hunting license. That's just where they're at with tracking. He took those experiences, came back to the United States, wrote this book in English, and this is what a lot of trackers use, kind of like the Bible for tracking. But he gained that knowledge through what his dog told him. Right. You know, so your dog told you things that maybe myths one day that you heard, right? And so it's called Tracking Dogs for Finding Wounded Deer. If you haven't, read it. It's good for hunters and trackers. He did write another one that's more focused on the hunters and evaluating hit sites as well, and the shot and what you should do. But things change in the rut, and I mean, you learn that by the use of a dog. And so we kind of went over the do's and don'ts. But let's see, what other advice can I? So I mean, the biggest don't would be the wait times. I mean,
right? Yeah, no. I'm telling you, that is, and I see that, dog involved or not. That's the number one thing. Every time somebody calls me or sends me a text or something, they said just shot a deer. I'm like, all right, cool. You know, usually depending on where I am. Now Jason, he's not here tonight. Jason will wait. I mean, he shot a 160-inch deer, waited 2 hours for a deer he saw fall for me to show up. So, you know, he's unusual. But the most people, they'll call me and they'll say, hey, I shot a deer. And I'm like, all right, man, I'm like an hour and a half away. And they're like, all right, well, I mean, just when you get here, let me know and we'll tell you, or when you head this way, let me know and I'll tell you where we're at. We'll already have it back at the house. And I'm like, okay. And, you know, some people I'm like, no, just relax, calm down. And then some people I'm like, well, I'm not going to get into the middle of their stuff, whatever they want to do. If they feel confident about it, I won't there. So if you feel confident about it, you know, then you do. But, you know, and sometimes, and it's always been a 50-50. Sometimes people find the deer, some people don't. But I'm a firm believer that you got to. I shot one time, a long time ago. I think I was about 16 years old. I shot it, and I was hunting with my uncle and another friend, and I shot the deer, and we found blood. I immediately, dude, I got out of the tree, went down the stand. Within like 5 minutes, saw blood. Called my uncle. I was like, oh, I shot a deer. We got to go get this deer. It's a good deer. It's a great deer. He smoked him. So we're like, got to go get him. I mean, within 5 minutes of shooting this deer, we're on this trail, right? We tracked this deer for like a mile and a half. Can't find it. And so I'm bummed. Again, you know, I'm like 16 years old. I'm bummed. And then we go back, and I was using a 30-30, and we go back, and my uncle's like, where were you at? Where did you shoot the deer? Get back up in the thing and pretend like, you know, you're doing this. So I get back up, and I aim it all out, the whole nine. And he starts looking around the ground and everything, and he's like, where do all these little wood chips come from? And I was like, what are you talking about? So I get down, I start looking. I'm like, where did these little wood chips come from? I had literally cut probably this 30-30 bullet went right through the middle of a tree that was about 1 inch in diameter, and it cut it directly in half. And half of the tree, the top half of the tree, was laying on the ground, and it had splintered the heck out of it. And this is an old 30-30. This is, in fact, the gun's right over there, but it's an old 30-30. It didn't have it's iron sights, you know, and it's just this old school thing. And so when I saw the deer, I'm looking, and I'm so focused on the deer that I didn't see this sapling right there. And just so happens, I hit the sapling, and I think the deer lived. I never found it. But, you know, that was one of those things that, one, I jumped right out of the tree. I mean, I was like, pow, and then jumped out of the tree and was like, got a deer, let's go, you know, and started running on it. And it was like an experience. And so as time's gone and as I've grown, I've learned just relax. And even though sometimes it's really hard, man. I mean, it is really hard. That deer the other day, I just wanted to go put hands on him, you know what I'm saying? And then the next day, it took us so long to find an arrow. By the time I found the arrow, and by the time I was like, Moore even looked. He was like, I looked across the creek a couple times. I could just see it all over your face. He was like, you're getting frustrated. You look like we're not gonna find this deer, man. This is like I wounded this deer. Looking at the footage, I knew the deer was gonna die. There's no way the deer can't die, but will I ever see the deer again, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's one of those things, and I think that's a big thing that tracking them with dogs can bring to the sport is, if done properly, because like you were saying, you've got to give the dog the best, you got to give them the biggest advantage that you can. Yeah. And as long as you do it properly, I think you're setting yourself up. And since you have tracked, so I mean, because you got to think, you amongst a bunch of the other guys that are in the group, they've tracked a lot of deer, so they know when you said, when Kirk showed up, he was like within 10 minutes.
He could tell me that deer was alive.
Yeah, he was like that deer's alive, and it was like, and he was
He's
right,
pretty straight up,
right. but that was one of the things where it's like it was his knowledge from looking from deer, and sometimes
and reading his dog. His dog just
didn't show any signs.
It didn't lock on, and he knows his dog from experience.
Right,
so experience that you can't just trust in his dog.
And it's one of those things that you don't. Somebody tells you all that deer's alive. You don't want to hear that. I mean, nobody wants to hear that.
He's like, you want to keep looking. I mean, we can look for another 30 minutes or so, and maybe I was hoping maybe he'll get downwind of it or. Right. I mean, these are tracking dogs. We try to start with the first step and end with the last one.
Right.
Because some dogs use more ground scent, some dogs use more air scent. Some dogs use ground scent up until they smell a lot of air scent in a scent pool, maybe in the bottom of a creek where the deer laid overnight, and they start picking their head up. But either way, each dog can do it. It's just that does the handler understand what he's seeing?
Right. And it's, that's... I think that a lot of people forget that because that is what you do, and that's what everybody in the group does and has done for so long, like Kirk did, you bring a lot of that knowledge to the table, whereas, like, I'm just good at, like, filming deer or watching deer or feeding deer. You know what I'm saying?
The other day, a guy, and then you get these fluke things that happen. I mean, the guy told me over the phone, this deer I've tracked it 500 yards. I shot it in the lower 1/3 behind the shoulder. I was like, well, why did it go 500 yards?
Right.
And I said, did you jump the deer? How long did you wait before you tracked it? Because, I mean, if you jump the deer, maybe it does go 500 yards if he missed just a little bit.
Right.
But he said, no, I never jumped the deer. He waited a reasonable amount of time to tracked it slowly. And the next day he was standing at the end of the blood trail calling me. And I said, this is what I think. This is a very low probability of finding this deer based on that 500-yard run or walk. He likely ran a little, then walked 400 yards. But, and if he passed a couple thickets, you're thinking, why wouldn't he stop if he was dying?
Right.
So that's another thing you should think about. But within 5 minutes, he texted me back, I found the deer, and I thought he was joking. And I said, well, send me a picture of the entry site. Send me a picture of the exit wound. I'd like to learn something from this, And he had shot it in the spine area, but had missed the spinal cord. He'd hit an artery, but he'd only nicked it.
Okay.
So we're talking about not a game of inches here. We're talking about millimeters. I mean, you cut that thing millimeters bigger. You got a dead deer in 50 yards.
Right.
So I told him, I said, hey, if I had a video of you hitting the deer there, I still wouldn't I still would be 99% sure that deer's alive. If he didn't fall right there. Right. And drag himself. Right. Then I would say, hey, you got, because that's a lot of the times. Those are the tracks that we if there's any we don't do. Right. When a deer gets a gunshot high and it shocks the spinal cord, it drops. While you're high-fiving, it gets up and runs away.
I know a guy I'm not gonna mention any names. But no, literally.
But like, I mean, it shocks the spinal cord, doesn't injure the spinal cord,
Right.
and they live a happy life.
Right.
And you don't find them as tracked.
Oh, in the video, you can see a buddy of mine shot a deer. In the video, you can see the mist come off the deer. Deer drops directly in his tracks. He's partying. He's celebrating. He's like, oh, yeah, da, da, da. And they're going through and they're filming. So they're kind of going through, oh, this is what we're going to do. Da, da, da. They get down. They take their time. They get down there. Deer's gone. And it's like, hindsight's 20/20. It was like you said, they shot just below the spinal cord. It shocked them. They hit the ground immediately. And then after kind of regained consciousness and was like, all right.
Check it off.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing that I've seen and learned and everything. I mean, these animals are tough, man. I mean, they're super tough. They're not. They're way tougher than you give them credit. You know what I'm saying? So, and I learned, like I said, I learned that every year you find something. So, you were saying earlier, 12 hours is your average.
Well, yeah, I was gonna, calls. Ideally, it'd be nice if they called you the night before, and said, hey, if I need you, I might call you tomorrow if this doesn't work out in the morning, right?
Right.
But just give you a heads up, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah,
you want people calling you at 2:00 in the morning?
That's why I have a separate phone, actually.
Oh, okay, there you go.
But I mean, it has a recording where it says, provide me the details.
Right.
I have a life for my other phone.
Yeah.
So, 2 different lives there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, ideally call early. It's okay to say, I'm still going to go look tomorrow. Will you be ready if I call you? That's perfectly fine. And maybe they give you some advice.
Usually they call, though, the next morning when they're like, oh, we looked all night. We come back. Now we can't find him.
Took a buddy's dog.
Yeah.
It
happens.
It's
man.
part of it.
I think, and to be honest with you, I think a lot of people actually want to get into it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I see a lot of people that are like, oh, I've got this dog and he's good. I've been taking him, and I get it. And there's a lot of guys that have been successful at, teaching their dog and stuff like that. But I think the first thing that people go to is, my buddy said his dog found a deer, so I'm going to call him first. And I mean, and that's fine because people want to lean on their friends. They feel more comfortable with it. But sometimes, like we were saying before, it takes a team and it takes that experience that you probably have that the buddy doesn't have that can bring to the table to help that be a lot more successful recovery.
Yeah. And repetition, training, known tracks that you've put out, where you can tell your dog and you build the trust. Say you get that dog doesn't veer off the track 10 out of 10 times. He just nails it. Well, now when you go to that track, you have the trust. And trust is what you need, because not trusting your dog is what you don't find the deer.
Right. A lot of people are like, no, he went this way.
I mean, sometimes, obviously the hunter tells me the direction the deer went. Often it's wrong. They say it went this way. I looked over here, and when I get there, I say, okay, you went that way. You looked all through there. Let's just, dog's the only way we're finding this thing. So let's not change what he's doing.
Right.
I mean, if my dog goes an opposite way, you haven't looked, that might be something to it.
Well, and that might be the,
that might be why you didn't find it.
Right. Absolutely.
But I mean, some people can't cover that much area, without your blood.
So what I'll ask is, obviously initially I would think your higher times for calls are usually bow season, early season.
Early bow, it's, because a lot
some
of
black powder maybe.
Gun is a little different to me because it feels like very dead or very not dead. But gun can be very different,
Well, there's so many calibers out there. I mean, I go with the trusty 30-06. Pawpaw ain't playing around, son. She hits the ground right where I shoot.
I enjoy both of them. And every year's changing because as we get the word out, I can't really even compare the seasons.
Right.
But in North Carolina, there's so many more gun hunters, than bow hunters.
Absolutely.
I mean, the crossbows get more people in the woods too.
Oh,
so that's good. but this season's has been really good for us, actually.
Really?
A lot of calls early. The weather, I think, the cooler temps have brought some of these deer
I already
out.
said that was something else. Well, outside of bringing deer out, what is easier for the dog? Do you prefer colder temps or warmer temps?
Well, which brings me to that, when to bring a dog. The rain can make it hard on you, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't. A little bit of rain or some moisture in the ground actually helps the dog.
Really?
It can refreshen something that's older.
Okay.
If it's raining hard when you shoot it, that dilutes it a lot. And your dog will be a little sloppy probably, but
right.
It's not hard for the dog to smell.
Gotcha.
Rains inches and inches, yes, you're adding difficulty. But also, I like colder temps, just so my dog doesn't overheat.
But which one is more beneficial?
I mean, drier could be harder. Just so cold oftentimes is really dry.
Well, I'm saying temperature. Okay, so
Yeah,
so when it's cold, it's drier, right?
Cold and dry versus humid and
right. Okay.
But you got to remember too, like when a track ages overnight, it's really not aging as much as when it ages during the day. When the day, at night thermals are kind of dropping to the ground, and scent is holding on the ground.
Yep.
Where you want your dog to find it.
Right.
When thermals in the morning rise with heat, and things start drying out with the sun and warmer temperatures, drier scents are harder on the dogs. So that overnight, that's how we kind of work with the temperatures and stuff. But those are all, the rain is another reason why it would be hard for someone to find it.
Right.
Gut tends to fill the holes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things clot up when the deer survival instincts kick in. There's just reasons why you can't find it with sight tracking. It's not the hunter's fault sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely not.
It's
one of those things, man. So this is one of those, even with a gun, more so with a bow, but even with a gun, I noticed that, you're hunting a wild animal, right? There's a lot of human error. There's a lot of animal reaction. I mean, I see, I watched a video the other day that when a deer's head is down, they're already in a position to drop faster.
Yeah.
Versus the head being up.
Which would be contradicting to being an alert deer, don't shoot it.
Right. But they're already in that. So
they can pull their head up and drop.
Right. So they're already in that go mode. So I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and I think a lot of people. And that's one of the things too that I think kind of deters people from calling dogs is that they feel like it's almost like I failed. Right. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's not even like they don't want to use it. They know the dog can find the deer if the deer's dead. It's that they feel like they're taking a loss when really, I encourage it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you've got an opportunity, if you're at least a little bit questioning it, just go ahead and call in some help.
Yeah, because you can always grid search after.
Exactly. I mean, if you can't find or whatever, if the dog comes in, that's a really good point. So if the dog comes in and you can't find the deer, then you start doing the grid search. Then you start walking in bigger areas, and you get all your friends out there, and you start really covering some footage and stuff like that. But for the dog's help and to help them and help you be successful, don't do that first. Make the grid a last option.
Don't even do a bunch of circles either. But I mean, you can do those little ones. Obviously, that's the natural thing to do.
Yeah. Everybody wants to. I mean, like I said, when I first found my arrow, I kind of looked in the vicinity, and then was like made the decision was like we need to back out.
And you told them about you tracked based on hoof prints only.
Well, yeah. So yeah, when we a dog could have done me a lot of good, but I had Mo. He's my dog. I'm gonna post that. I might post that. That might be the picture for this podcast. But no, so the entry room was back, and it was clearly gut. May have gotten into a liver, but it was a lot of gut, right? And the deer was quartering to me a little way, so it got into the gut, come out, hit the back leg of all friggin' places. But that was actually a saving grace because that back leg was injured. And so every time he took a step, regardless of where it was, he was digging. You know what I'm saying? So that caused him to leave a mark, which made it easier for us to find it. But had I called a dog, that's what the dog would have found.
Yeah, he would have used those hoof prints. But make no mistake, we take pride in tracking our own deer with sight tracking. So we don't use dogs as a substitute for you to track, right? So the fact that you found that's commendable just based on hoof prints alone.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's tracking. That's something that people have been doing for years and years and years, and we respect that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, it makes it good. I mean, but I don't think that there's some people, like I said, I was fortunate enough to have, and I had multiple friends that were really good at tracking, offered to come help. But it was just one of those things where I was blessed, but not everybody is, right? Mm-hmm. So not everybody has that opportunity.
Maybe I've tracked for guys I got an idea he was hunting some game land. He was new to the area.
Right.
Said,
right.
You got any friends around here? No. I was like, well, you do now.
Yeah. Oh man, and that's another thing too. And I think that this is great for the industry, which is why I like to promote stuff like this. I like to promote a lot of different stuff. Our community, and when I say our community, I mean the hunting community, needs a lot more of bringing together and a lot less of separation. And we find ourselves constantly separating from each other, and we don't need that. And so I like it all. I don't think there's a right way or wrong way. I don't think there's a bad way or a good way. I think there's just
ultimately everyone wants to find these animals that
right.
They have the ethical responsibility of
Absolutely.
finding, and that could be for different for each person what they get out of the hunt. But we have trackers, and we're a donations only service, so we have trackers new trackers maybe that need to come out there for you don't have you don't have any tip money or whatever. Those are tracks that make our dogs better, make our teams better.
So talking about that, do you encourage people to call even if they think that it's a good shot? I mean I'm just asking.
If you find a deer, if you want to do a training track,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, you've got to have a core group of people that shoot deer that you're like, hey, call me.
When you shoot a deer and don't know where it is, I say you call the best you can. Right? We're not going to practice on your deer.
Right.
But if say you found it, or maybe there's just no one that can do it, only a new tracker.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's better than not anything.
Yeah.
And maybe he's awesome. He just hasn't proved himself, right? So,
well, I'm saying, does the group encourage people who may know where the deer is?
May know.
Like actually know where the deer is, or know that I made a really good shot, but here's an opportunity for you to
we
let
would
your
welcome
dog.
that. We would welcome that.
Oh, you got
to friends do that,
right?
I mean,
okay, yeah, maybe that's what the deal is. Maybe
trackers got friends that shoot deer, and they're like, you got a young dog, you got a young, and we hunt too, so we got a young dog. We'll take it out there and practice on a real track. I mean,
experience. It's like anything in life. Experience is where this all comes from.
You can't mimic a real track in practice. You can do a better job by using the hoof scent and maybe brushing on a tree every once in a while, making wound beds and turnings out of it and backtracks and these types of things.
Yeah.
But a deer puts on so much different scent that you can't replicate it. But if you send a dog to do that multiple times, eventually it just keys in. Let's use all these smells to find this deer.
Right.
Get rid of the blood. We don't even care about that no more. So, we would encourage people to do that. People have friends that do that.
Right.
But if someone doesn't know the deer, we're recommending you.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, if you've got a really good deer and you don't, you want to call the best, or you want to reach out. But that group, everybody in that group is considered.
Well, are you talking the UBT stuff?
Yeah.
We're interested in growing, so we welcomed everyone, and we welcome everyone. But eventually, we're going to have to at some point start requiring some type of generic test to just show that you put in that effort, right?
Right.
I mean, they're not difficult. They're not terribly difficult to do. So by putting that effort, it gets you on the list or gets you on the map. It's something, you know. And then we use their reputation, their experience with trackers. At some point may require them to have a certain amount of real life tracks that are documented. And what do the hunters think? How was their experience with those guys? You know?
Right.
So we have to, we're interested in growing, so we don't want to shy people away. You can always go to NC Blood Trail Network, ask questions about dogs, starting dogs, and how to start them. And that was kind of one of the last things we were planning on talking about, was just where to go and what to do, because people don't know where to start.
So yeah, let's go on and let's dive into that. So if you wanted, say, I've got a dog, I'm really interested in this, you know, obviously I'm going to assume that, like we were saying before, I'm probably going to practice on my friend's deer, whether it be something they know is dead or whether something that is somewhat questionable. You know what I'm saying? You probably want to start
easy
with
ones, which would be a gut shot, something with a lot of scent.
Right.
Can be easier for younger dogs.
Right.
Doesn't even a gut shot without blood can be easier.
But if you start, so where do you start? If somebody's interested, say I bought a dog today, I want to get in.
You know, the common question we get is, what kind of dog would you get?
Oh man, that's the best one. What's the best dog? Let's just rule it out right now.
There is no best dog.
Dachshunds are the best,
oh,
man.
No. The first thing I tell people is, you know, think about how's this dog going to fit in your home life? Because you got these crazy, insane, high energy dogs that need to be doing a lot of something. And if you can't fit them in your home, then you don't need to have them there, because it's going to be a terrible pet.
Yeah.
Right? They got to be pets and they got to be trackers, you know. Some spend more time in the house than others. So I would think about what fits in your home the best, and then any nose-oriented dog can track deer. You know, it's about why. Why does a dog track deer? Every dog gonna track for different reasons. Maybe your lab tracks it because just to please you. You know, they're very eager to please, right? Right. Maybe, you know, my dachshunds just want to eat the deer when they get there.
Right.
You know, they really don't care about what I do.
Right.
They just want to chomp on some deer.
Right.
You know, prey drives super high, and so you're going to have different challenges you're going to face as a new tracker. Yeah. Right. So, my challenge is make sure he doesn't want to eat the squirrel or the rabbit too. You know. Right. So, whereas someone else's challenges they face with a lab or something else is different. So, nose-oriented dog that you can have in your home that you can put the time into. Okay. And the book John Jenney wrote does a really good job of giving you the first steps to building a tracking dog. It also talks about different breeds. Okay. And maybe there's weaknesses and strengths a little bit. Absolutely. And the way they track maybe differently, you know. Absolutely. But we start with a liver drag usually. Okay. It could be, as soon as they can walk. Who is we? I mean, in the book. Oh, okay. And most people will refer to this book. Okay. And the reason we do the liver drag is the scent is so strong. Right. And it's easy for the puppies, but when they get to the end, they bite into it and they get that really good taste of meat. Oh yeah, absolutely. So they'll let a litter of puppies out, drag them. You know, you want to start with a breeder, maybe generations of trackers. You know, in that lineage. Interesting. Right. Yeah. I mean, that would be a good start. It's just more, not that any dog can't do it. It's just you want to limit your chances of getting a dog that maybe presents more challenges to you. So you mean a husky can't? Yeah, a husky. I mean, all of them can, man. I took one of those Malinois. Can I get you think my big bulldog can do it? Well, you're talking about. Does he need a nebulizer after he's done? Yeah, no, yeah, he'll pass out. Big headed thing. Get him in shape, right? Yeah, no, yeah. But no, the other day, it wasn't that long ago. A guy called me, he wanted some advice. So I was like, okay, gave him as much advice over the phone. He said he's going to Wyoming. He's going to be tracking maybe antelope and elk. I said, okay. Where do you want to meet? I can maybe just show you what I expect out of my dogs, and you can take from that. Watching it, you get a ton from it.
Right.
Talking about it, not so much. So went out and did that. And I mean, he had one of those police dogs, the Malinois, German Malinois.
Oh, yeah. I
And,
would think that those dogs seem very athletic. They seem like they want to body slam you. I don't really see them like wanting to track you down.
They're not as big as a shepherd, so it wasn't that huge. But I mean,
Yeah,
I was a little intimidated.
They're energetic though.
Yeah, they're athletes, and that means you might have to be an athlete to hold on.
Yeah, I mean,
But we went on a track. I set out overnight, and see, his dog had a different reason for tracking. His dog's reason for tracking was, okay, it's blood, it's a deer. And then when he got there, he wanted his tennis ball. So that's fine. As long as you can connect the start, the blood, the deer smells to tennis ball,
right.
then your dog, when he starts, it's like, I'm getting this tennis ball.
Yeah.
May not be a deer, but
Right.
I'm getting this tennis ball. Now you put deer stuff at the end just so he knows it's the end.
Right.
So we'll put like a hide and usually the feet we've set out the track with.
Yeah.
So that it can associate the track with those. But the dog did it for tennis ball. So dogs can do it. It's just about you putting the time in.
So where should, I mean, if I'm in North Carolina and I want to get involved, where would I reach out to? I mean, do I reach out to the group directly? Is there something else?
United Blood Trackers has forums. They have blogs.
And that can help connect you into...
Yeah, they're like a $25 a year membership.
Okay.
It's what our trackers use. But there's also resources on there that talk about the tests that you don't have to be a member to do that. They also have a Facebook page.
Okay.
Members and non-members pages. But yeah, if you reach out to any of us over there, we love talking about it.
Maybe the first thing that you do is just come out sometime when they're going to track and just watch and help.
They talk, and yeah, watching is something to be seen. It's just it's kind of light bulb goes off in people's heads like, hello, why didn't I use this 2 years ago?
Right.
So yeah, we would encourage that as well. We had a get together where we do these UBT tests. We have a couple judges in our group that judge them.
Okay.
And so we were at the Dixie Deer Classic last year. We were able to raise money from other trackers and to get us a booth outside. I met tons of great people.
Oh yeah, you swung by our booth. That was great.
Yeah, and but we're trying to get indoors next time. And
come on in, man. We'll have you.
You got a spot?
We got a spot. Come on in. Sit down.
So that's one way we reach out. But we really next year would like to put on a type of tracking seminar. It will probably, if we get in there and they actually do the Dixie Deer Classic,
Yeah. God almighty.
We'll probably have someone speak on it.
Okay.
Like a little seminar. Sydney Vaughn, Kirk Vaughn's son, who also still tracks.
Yeah.
With Country Boy Blood Tracking. He does a little speech on it. He does a little public speaking there about tracking. Would be beneficial for any even hunters to listen to. But we do something like that, and maybe just have a seminar get-together group where we test dogs and teach trackers. We've had a get-together before where we educated trackers.
Right.
But I think we'd do another one this year with COVID.
Oh, man.
We had the heat during the summer. We didn't want to test dogs then. And the COVID came and messed it up.
I heard that the COVID can get the dogs, man. So you better be careful. Luckily, deer, they haven't got it to deer. So we won't touch on it. We won't touch on it. All right. Well, so we're at the point we've got to start wrapping it up. But last thoughts. You got 5 minutes. Shoot it out. Bang, bang, bang. What do you got?
About one.
What do you got? I mean,
I'm just encouraging people to learn more about it. Contact NC Blood Trail Network. Any trackers on there, we'll be glad to help you.
Absolutely.
Trackers themselves, if they want to get involved, to the John Jenney book.
Start there.
Yeah, that's where I would start. It's the first thing people are going to say. I mean, it's where we start, and then get out there and work with your dogs.
Experience, yeah. Got to
learn how to read your dog.
I'll make sure that I post the link to the map in the YouTube. When I post this on YouTube, I'll post the link to that so that anybody, if you're in North Carolina, and granted, I don't know how far these guys are willing to drive, but if you're in North Carolina and you need help, finding a deer, reach out, hit the link, follow the map. There's a lot of, how many people you got on there?
We got at least 10. We got a little bit more on the list than we do the map because it's kind of a privilege to be on the map,
right?
So we're earning it and getting on there and getting the word out.
Right. I got you. That's great. We appreciate it. So what I would say is, what I've taken away from this, what I've seen from this is, if you shoot a deer and you don't think it's the best shot, or you get frustrated, which let's just be honest, sometimes it's a great shot. The deer's dead within 100 yards of where you are. The problem is you head in the wrong direction. Yeah, you head 200 yards in the wrong direction. It's one of those things that before you get frustrated and call everybody in to just start running grids, just take 5 seconds. Reach out to these guys. And if you're not in North Carolina, reach out. Look in your area. Look on these hunting groups. I see this post all the time. It's like, anybody got a dog? Anybody got a dog? That's a great way to reach out, and I don't discourage those posts, but hopefully we can do a better job of getting these guys out there into the public so that you don't have to go on there and say, does anybody have a dog? And our group and NC Deer Hunters, it's at the top of the page. So you can, and it's pinned, and one of the admins pinned it early season. That way it's right there at the top, and you can go there, and it'll be there all season. I get so tired of seeing it, but it ain't nothing against you. But the next thing is that there's a lot of people in there that it can help. So that's why it is pinned, and that's why we want to leave it up there. We want to make it accessible for people who need it. And but don't be scared to ask for help. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people, they shy away from it because they look at it as some type of a negative thing, and I don't think it is. And I think also, if there's an opportunity to increase your ability to connect with the deer that you connected with once before, why not do it? So that's just me. That's my opinion. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast.
Shane, I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not many platforms we got, but we take advantage of the ones we have.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it, man.
And I appreciate it too. So real quick, tell them again, where do they go if they want to check you out? They want to check the group out. They want to find the stuff.
I'm out of Granville in Granville County at Low to Ground Deer Recovery, but I'm a member of the NC Blood Trailing Network.
Okay.
You've also got the UnitedBloodTrackers.org as a resource.
Cool.
They also have a Find a Tracker map. Not all trackers are on there, but and that's it, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate it. We look forward to the next one. So until we get to the next podcast, y'all have a good one, and remember, it's all about the release.